Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Heart-Based Business Show. I am your host, Dr. Shirlene Reeves, and I'm always so appreciative when you're here with me. And today is going to be a really unique day because my guest is so amazing. I just love talking to her. She has great energy. She's lots of fun. And we're going to be talking about women in transition for this show. And that's one of my favorite topics because I feel like my whole life I've been in transition practically. And there was a time, you probably won't believe me when I tell you this, but there was a time when I lived in a little tiny trailer with my two boys on the beach. And it's very difficult when you have to live in a situation like that because there's no stability. And it's the biggest change you'll ever make in your life. And my guest today is going to talk to us all about that. So what I want to do is quickly do the intro because we have to get that over with. And then I'll be right back with you. So welcome back. You know, you wouldn't know what it feels like to be homeless until you are. Just think about that. Living in a car, not having any place to go and shower and fix your breakfast. It's such an odd feeling to be homeless because you don't feel grounded. You don't feel like you know what's even going to happen in the next day. And everything that happens while you are homeless seems to be a surprise. At least it was for me. And you kind of have to roll with it until you can pull yourself out of it. And one of the things I truly, truly believe is what we say to ourselves is what occurs in our lives. So if we say, oh, I'm poor, you're always going to be poor. But if you have a mindset that says, I'm rich, I may not look like it, but I have so much to provide to the population and to bless others with, I am rich and I will come out of it. You are fortunate if you think that way. And both my guest and I both think that way. And that's why we end up where we are. So I'm going to tell you where she is now, who she is, and then I'm going to let her tell you her story. Good idea? I think so. So guess what? She's an international best-selling author. She is an award-winning filmmaker and photographer. And she's created a series of books called It's Simply. And she's published several best-selling books of her own and now coaches other writers through the publishing process. And she also works with women moving through transition. Her passion, and this is what I really love about her, not only just her great energy and her wonderful personality, but her passion is about writing and directing social impact films and supporting women in transition to tap into their creative genius. But remember what I just said. You can tap into your creative genius, but you have to believe that that's where you belong. So let me welcome, oh, drum roll, please, Callie Gilbert. Welcome to the show, Callie. I'm so excited that you're here with me, and I know we're going to have a lot of fun.
We are. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. So tell us I shared a little bit about what happened with me. So you tell them your story because it's a really good story.
Absolutely. So I experienced two bouts of homelessness between 2011 and 13. I had graduated. I'm a former athlete, actually, a figure skater. I traveled all over the world. I went to grad school at the University of San Francisco and received my master's degree in sport management. And I had started my own event management consulting firm. And I thought this was the direction that I was going. And then when I graduated at the end of 2010, I couldn't find clients. I couldn't find work. I was living in Sausalito, California, which is one of the most beautiful
Price.
yet expensive places in the Bay Area, and
Yes.
trying to live on savings, and literally lost everything in 2011. And was in shock because I thought, how is this possibly happening to me? You know, I have all these degrees, I've got all this experience, I have this massive network, and yet I don't have a home. And so the first time around was really, I was in a place of victimhood. I was in that, scarcity mindset, didn't really know what to do, who to turn to. And it was a very difficult process, but I ended up getting through it and manifesting an amazing life within a couple months. It was pretty amazing, and ended up in a job that was for a property management company. And I ended up in an apartment that was massive. It was incredible. And it was in Sausalito. And it was a fourth of what I had been paying at my own home that I had lost. And so I figured, wow, this is great. I'm manifesting this amazing life. And then I got involved in a very toxic relationship. And I believe that when we are out of alignment with life, our body reflects that and gives us like warning signals that we're out of alignment. So I injured my low back. I had 2 compressed discs in my low back, and I ended up with sciatica for 7 months. And I literally thought I was going to die. I mean, basically in tears every day. And then I got to the point where I literally could not sit or stand for more than 30 minutes at a time. So as a result, I ended up losing the job and again losing the home, which was attached to the job. And I thought, okay, great. I'm out on the street again, and I can't move either. So it's kind of like I literally
really
looked at the heavens and go, all right, let's see how much
Yeah.
more this kid can take, And it was crazy. But the second time I thought, well, you know what? The first time I didn't die. I got through it, right? So I know I'm going to be okay. So instead of looking at it from the mindset of the scarcity, the victim mentality, I'm going to slightly change my mindset and look at it from a point of view of I'm on an adventure, and where is life going to take me this week? Because like you said, you can't plan anything, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. So I thought, let's just take it a week at a time and see, what is life going to bring us? And literally by changing that mindset just that slightly, it changed everything, because I was connecting with people that I hadn't seen in years, who one was from Sausalito. She was selling, her mother had passed away. She was selling the family home. She invited me to stay in the home while the home was in escrow. So I had this $1 million house that I'm staying in. It was amazing. There was another one, a friend of mine, a literary agent, was going to Europe for 6 weeks, had me house sit his place on Nob Hill. And it was back to back to back for 8 months is how I lived. And it was incredible because I was in a place for long enough that I was able to heal my back in that time. And I was also able to write, which was my creative outlet for the grief and the emotions that I was experiencing.
That creative outlet is so important. And I think anybody who writes uses that as an outlet to adjust whatever it is that they're thinking in their mind. And then they put it on paper and they go, wow, I could share that with somebody else.
Absolutely. I mean, after the first time of experiencing homelessness, I actually, in 2012, I published 4 books by using that creative outlet of my writing and photography and expressing what I was feeling and what I was going through. And then the second time around, when I had those 8 months where I was trying to heal my body and emotionally heal, I wrote my 5th book, It's Simply Serendipity, which was the first of the memoir series that really launched my career as an author and kind of set things in motion from there. It was amazing.
Wow. One of the things that I tell my clients is that sometimes our hardest experiences, our most difficult learning experiences, create the most growth for our soul. I mean, we
Absolutely.
grow so much, and these little things don't teach us much. But when we go through something as major as what you've gone through or what I went through, you shift your behavior and your way of thinking. And somehow your behavior and your way of thinking got you there in the first place, right? So it's all
Absolutely.
about moving along. So talk to me about how you pulled yourself out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you were just saying, I think it's a matter of taking 100% responsibility for your own life, right? I mean, that's where
Yeah.
it starts. And realizing that, looking back at choices you made and decisions you made on how you ended up there, and also questioning. It was interesting. There was one time where the first time around, I could only scrounge up about $10 a week and extra, like I guess you could call disposable income. And for that, I went to a yoga class
Mm.
once a week. And one morning, as I was walking, because I didn't have a car, to
Mhm.
this yoga class, I remember thinking, why is this happening to me? I was, like I said, in that victim mentality. So it was like, why? And the answer I got was amazing. And it was such a gift because the answer was, well, Callie, you are so passionate about supporting youth and people that are less fortunate and are in difficult times, and you want to support them and help them and inspire them, but you have never experienced what it's like to have that loss or to have that experience. So how can you possibly relate to what it is that they're going through? And in
Mhm.
that moment, it was like this light bulb went off, and I went, oh, and I was like, bring it to me. Whatever you're going to give, bring it to me. I now understand. And
Yeah.
so, even in the darkest moments, there are those gifts where they kind of, set that new path, that new direction for where your life is supposed to take you.
And you say that you work with women who are in this situation. And what point in this transition do you take them on, and how do you show them the way out?
Yeah, so my definition of transition really varies because it can mean several things. So it can mean, a divorcee, a job loss, empty nesters. The kids are grown now, and a woman is like, okay, I've done my job as a parent, and now they're on their own, and I finally have time and this space where I can look at my own life and what I want to create and what I want to contribute. And so there's so many ways of being to you know, support a woman in reaching her dreams and her passions and what she wants to create for her life, separate from what she's done for everyone else. I think it's really important to, ask a woman, say, what is your dream? What is it that you want to create for yourself, that you want to take your own uniques and gifts and talents and share with the world? And how may I support you in doing that? So it can be different stages depending on what that transition period means for the woman in particular.
Do you think that the experiences that you had in your life leading up to this point had any effect on how you handled it or how you got into it?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I'm a former athlete. I've traveled all over the world. I was a celebrity from a time I was a child. So it was interesting being that I was exposed to celebrity and to this world on such a massive scale from such a young age. And so when I went through all of this, I think the greatest gift and probably one of the most important is that it allowed me to really put life into very simple terms. Because literally, when you're homeless, there's only two things that matter, and that is where am I going to sleep and what am I going to eat? And
Exactly.
that's it, right? And everything
Yes.
else is like icing on the cake. And so living in that with that mentality, that new approach to life has helped me so much. I mean, especially this year. I think, 2020 for me has been one of the best years of my life because
Hmm.
I live very simply. I have a beautiful home, I have beautiful things, but it's like I wake up and the first thing I do is I share my gratitude for the things that I have. And the first thing I say is, thank you for this day. Thank you for my breath, for the roof over my head, for my bed, the simple things that for many we take for granted, right? But for so many are luxuries, really.
I don't think people really understand that until they don't have it.
Exactly.
If they haven't gone through it, it just is day in and day out. They don't really appreciate it until it's whipped out from under them.
Absolutely.
And that's why I say, I think that these experiences that we have are so huge when it comes to growth. And it's been hard for a lot of people with what's been going on and having to stay at home all the time. It's been really, really tough on people. And other people are moving in on people, which makes it really hard also because they're losing their place to live because they can't afford the rent anymore and don't know where to go next. And I think that's kind of a scary feeling when you're standing there with maybe a backpack or a suitcase and you go, well, what now?
Yeah.
What do I do now? Where do I go? I don't belong anywhere. I don't know. You remember that feeling? I don't know.
Many
Where
days.
do I fit in? How do I fit in? Why am I here
Exactly.
in the first place? You start asking big questions.
Absolutely. And so many things that people take for granted. And, how are you going to apply for a job when you don't have an address to put on an application form? I mean, you don't have a place where they can mail you something. I mean, it's so many simple things, and it's like, yeah, but I can't do this because I don't have this and I want to do it, And so it's kind of that catch-22, right? It's like, I'm trying to do the part and I'm trying to make my, situation better, but there's limitations to when you don't have anything. So absolutely.
So where were all the people that were helping you grow up with all your skating and all of that? What happened to your support system? And I think that's one of the most important things that we need to have when we get into this situation is a support system. What happened to yours?
Well, the wonderful and not so wonderful thing about being a public figure when you're a child is that you grow up, not really knowing who is there to really be your friend or who is there simply because of who you are and who you can, have access to. So I definitely learned who my real friends were when all of this was happening. And people that were fairly new friends were the ones that were really coming to my aid and, sending me in the right direction as to public services that I could find support from and things like that. So it was definitely a learning experience in terms of who my friends were when I really needed them.
Boy, and I agree with that 100%. 100%, because I had the same thing. It seems like when you're down and out, the friends don't show up. Exactly. Or if you're going through a divorce, they take the other side and then they come back after the divorce is all over and say, oh, I'm really sorry you experienced that. I still want to be your friend. No, you're not a friend. You weren't there to support me. You weren't there when I needed you. And, when I went through that situation, I wiped everybody out. I totally wiped them out. I didn't want to have anything to do with them. And I was just done because I realized that they weren't the people that I needed to have in my life because they weren't there when I needed them.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. And then when I came to LA, my very first friend, who is my best friend, was the most amazing person, was loving and supportive and encouraging, and anything I wanted to try in terms of my creative endeavors, he was there cheering me on, and I had nothing. I didn't even have a home, And so that's the thing. The ones that are there standing by you, supporting you and loving you when you have nothing are the ones you want to keep around.
Absolutely. And you find that out when you have nothing.
Absolutely.
All these friends you thought you had, they're just not there. Well, I'm sorry you got yourself into that. Good luck with that. That is the phrase I hate more than anything else. When somebody says to me, good luck with that, I know, and I found out because that's what those friends said, and then they walk the other way. And I found out that when people say that, they really don't care about you. So I'm going to tell you something, audience. Don't tell people good luck with that, because right away you're telling them, I don't care about you. Take care of it yourself. Right, Callie?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to really tap into what you have on your own. I mean, there were many times where there was no one and it was up to me to get out of that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And even my partner says, he goes, yeah, I was there, but you did the work,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And
Exactly.
so it's really, like I said, again, taking 100% responsibility for what you're going through and putting in the work, having the faith that things will work out, but also doing your part, it's so important.
Yeah. And I think that evaluation, which was one of the major things that I did, was how did I get here? And what did I do to get here? And who did I trigger that put me here? That's another thing, because our behavior affects other people. So we are never sure how they're going to react, but we have to take care of ourselves before we try to involve anybody else anyway.
Absolutely,
Right?
because if we're not functioning at 100%, we're no good to anyone else.
Exactly. And I try to tell people that. You know what? There's so many life coaches out there now. I mean, they're just like spinning them out. There's so much, and they don't really have any background or anything. And they got into it because they're taking care of themselves. So how can they coach other people when they're not whole? You know what I mean? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your program. I know you have this really great program for women that are in transition, and you named
Yeah.
some of them empty nesters or people who have been
Yep.
laid off. Go ahead and talk
Yeah.
to us about that.
So I recently released my 10th book, which is Perception. It's the third book in my memoir series. And the book is my personal story of transformation, but also it's about 2020 and how I've been able to make this crazy, unpredictable year one of the best years of my life. And one of the keys is building structure in your life, because I truly believe that if you have structure, regardless of what's going on around you, you can create success. And so I created an 8-week program called Journey Towards Perception, where I teach the teachings from my memoir series on how to manifest, how to involve the law of attraction, how to really tap into what we all have within us in order to create the life of our dreams. And it's step by step, and excited to support women on this journey. I think, 2020 was such an incredible year, but also as we lead now into 21, there's so much possibility, so many opportunities if we learn how to look for them, realizing that there's so many blessings, even, golden nuggets of blessings in this trauma and during these chaotic, circumstances. And I'm really excited about sharing this with others.
Awesome. That sounds just awesome. And I totally know what you mean about it being a great year. It's been one of my best years. It's just amazing. And my book went #1 in 4 countries in March of
Right?
2020. And you know what was going on. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of good things. If we look at the good things in our lives and we draw on those good things, then so many more good things will come for us.
Yeah, and I think too is realizing in life that everything is temporary, right?
Mhm.
First 2 months of 2020 for me were incredible. I mean, my biggest dreams in regards to being a filmmaker came true, and I thought these things were going to happen years down the line, and they happened within, weeks of each other. It was crazy. And so when COVID hit, it was like, okay, well, do I want to crawl under a rock and wait this thing out, or do I want to keep working, putting my stuff out there, getting creative, planting seeds for however long this, takes place. And then when we're done with this, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be set for this next chapter. And so that's what I've been doing. I've spent this amazing year, creating new projects, creating programs, working on lots of writing, put out the 10th book. I mean, and so now looking into 21, I'm excited because there's so many opportunities, and especially in film. I mean, there's like this hunger for content, right?
Mhm.
And so
Yes. Yes.
perfect opportunity.
Tell us quickly about your film, would you? And the
Absolutely.
awards you've won. I'm so proud of all the things that you've
Yeah,
done.
thank you so much. So the film is entitled Invisible. I shot it with my cell phone because I literally was just like, I need to get something out there as a proof of concept for my work. I had launched my own production company. And I thought, all right, I'm going to do this. Made this thing, took 6 weeks to make. I literally reached out to some friends in the homeless community who support the homeless community and said, can I interview you? Reached out to some more friends, asked them to donate some music for the project. It's zero budget for this thing. And released it in October, started submitting it to film festivals, won our first awards in January, screened, had the premiere, the LA premiere at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, was invited as an accredited filmmaker to the Cannes Film Festival in France. I mean, all these things, it was just craziness. I was like, someone pinch me, really. This is not supposed to be happening. And so,
Yeah.
and it was such a gift, that little film, because I made it basically to show what I could do in terms of work for social impact. And because I'd been working on a feature-length documentary entitled Pearl, which is about women in transition, women who had experienced homelessness. And by releasing Invisible, it really set a new course for Pearl and a new direction and a new passion for me as well. And that is now really supporting women in transition who are creative, who are heart-centered, who have experienced homelessness or currently are, and supporting them in starting their own businesses. Because I believe that is one way that we can end homelessness, is to support others in becoming entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we cannot depend on employers to employ us. Look at how many people get laid off. And it has a lot to do with age and insurance costs and trying to pare down to meet what it is that we're dealing with now. And if you have some sense, and I beg people to have their own business, if you have some sense of business and you can get into something and teach somebody something that's so valuable that's going to shift their life, it makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happened to me, is I couldn't find work, and because I was overqualified, I had too many degrees, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is craziness. I literally had people say, don't put the degrees on your resume,
Isn't that
And I'm like,
interesting?
that's just so wrong,
Yeah.
And so, and
What's
that's
the
another
point
reason.
then?
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was another reason I wanted to release Invisible, because I wanted to show that homelessness does not discriminate, right? It doesn't matter what demographic you are. It can happen to anyone.
Yes.
And so I wanted to really get that message across and say, look, there are organizations out there to support people that are already homeless. But what about prevention? What can we do to prevent people from getting there in the first place? And so that's now what I'm really passionate about doing.
Yeah. And I've seen interviews on people living in their cars, sleeping in Walmart. I mean, it's just amazing what is happening in our world right now. So, Callie, I just want to thank you for being with me. I'm so appreciative. And I'll make sure that Callie has her information down below. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this show, because it's such an honor to have her here. And yes, she is a child star, which is really fun too. So Callie, thank you again. I really appreciate that you were here.
Thank you so much.
So everyone, I hope you enjoyed that show. If you're heading toward homelessness, know that there is a place that you can stop. It doesn't have to be that way forever. Just tell yourself it's only temporary. This too shall pass, and you'll find a way. And it'll be just like what I had, where somebody knocked on my door and said, "Can I take care of your kids so you can go to work?" And what a lovely woman. She did it. And I went to work. And my whole life changed just because she knocked on the door. Thanks so much for being with us today. I'm always very, very appreciative that you're here with me. And I look forward to seeing you next week, where I'll be all on my own. So I'm going to have a really good topic for you. See you then, everybody. Bye-bye.